And we're live with the Chester Sky Show. Today we're joined by Jonah Babins. Thank you for coming on our podcast, Jonah.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be hosted on another podcast. This is wonderful.
And Jonah is the president of the Toronto Magic Company.
That is true. We're co-founders, but I like the title president. I like to call myself Chief Wizard Man. That's what I. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. We co-run it. We don't really have roles like that, but I'll go with president. It's lovely. I like it. Makes me sound official.
It's you've been running this for quite a few years now. You've got your own podcast as well for I think over 3 years.
Yep.
Since 2016 or something, right?
Yep. So I started Discourse in Magic in 2016, where we interview world famous magicians. Still going on now, and right now, it's really interesting because before it was more of an information podcast, and now it still is, but kind of helping magicians right now pivot to the world of virtual, which has been a lot of fun and very exciting. And of course, the Toronto Magic Company, where we used to put on public magic shows all over the city. We were a magic agency where people book out magicians through us. And now we are virtual all of that. So we book out private virtual magic shows. We do public virtual ticketed shows. And we do some wonderful events for magicians like unconventional.fun, which I'd love to talk about. And yeah, we're creating awesome, fun magic, sharing amazing magic with it used to be with Toronto. Now we're fortunate enough to be with the world, and we're having fun doing it in the world of virtual.
Well, I discovered you when I came to your meetup shows, and you had this venue, and you were essentially doing open mic magic, which I've never heard of before. I've seen magic shows, but never an open mic thing.
Well, we kind of invented it. Not really, like those kind of shows sort of exist, but Ben came up with the idea of the newest trick in the book, which was the name of the show. And it started around 2016. It was just a fun little way for magicians to test material. And now, obviously, that show was running in Toronto weekly for quite a while, probably about 4 years before it stopped because of this. But in that time, we've actually helped so many amazing magic communities around the world launch their own versions of that show. So in Boston, they have the Boston Magic Lab. In Buenos Aires, they have the Buenos Aires Magic Company, which is hilarious and wonderful. In Indianapolis, they have, I forget the name of it, but they all started these kind of open mic magic shows. Chicago Magic Lounge started a show, and it's not necessarily our idea. I obviously don't want to say that because it's like, it's like an open mic night, right? So I'm sure it's happened before. There's no question. But definitely we're trying to emulate that vibe of a New York comedy club scene where you could go, who knows who would be there, who knows what you would see. It might be great, it might not, who knows. That's kind of the whole fun of it. And you've been to quite a few of them, and you know that some of them amazing, once in a lifetime, crazy things happen. And also sometimes people do horrible magic, and it's hilarious.
It was one of the things where it was really, I didn't really understand, how does a magician actually get comfortable in front of an audience to start out? So I guess they need these sort of things.
I mean, it's true. The real answer is you do it for your family until someone pays you to do it. And then people don't pay you enough. And then eventually you're good enough at it that you need to go with work for the people that do pay you enough. That's what it looks like, right? But we basically helped bridge the gap for so many magicians in Toronto and say to them, okay, you don't have to try a brand new trick for the very first time for a paying audience. This is a free open mic show. Try your brand new trick 2 or 3 times here. If it doesn't work, no problem. They'll get a refund. It was free. It doesn't matter. But also, we have 3 or 5 other performers that are going to probably do a really good job. And we made sure to craft the show so that we didn't put 5 people who have never done magic before all on one show or anything silly like that. But yeah, it's an opportunity for magicians to actually get on stage. And the reason why it was so popular for magicians is exactly what you're saying, which is there are not a lot of other places that you can perform and get feedback on your magic. And the truth is, the places that magicians do perform and do that historically is for other magicians. And what's cool about the newest trick in the book is it's for lay people, right? It's for non-magicians. You get real authentic reactions.
There's a lot of similarities between comedy clubs. I guess there's a lot of similarities between just magic and comedy. I in my opinion, the best shows are usually the ones that are more the performance, and then the trick comes like that's there as well. But the performer is really what you're there to see, more than the trick itself sometimes.
For sure. I would definitely agree with that. I think that the reason why we know, especially in magic, the reason why we know certain names is because of who they are, not really because of what they do. I mean, yes, because of what they do, but it's the lens of, what they do through who they are, right? The way Chris Angel does a card trick and the way David Copperfield does a card trick, the way David Blaine does a card trick, the exact same card trick is the reason why they are who they are. And in magic, the question of why when I do a trick and you do the exact same trick, people go bonkers when I do it and not when you do it, but both times they don't know how the trick works.
True.
Right? And that's the question, is it goes, okay, now how do we get the type of reaction that we really want, whatever it is? Maybe it's having people bonkers, maybe it's having people laugh, might be having people cry, might be confusion, it might be excitement, I mean, who knows what it is. But how do we actually get what it is that we're going for?
I've seen the trick that you had in the last show where you have a glass and you have a card in the glass that changes several times throughout the show. From what I understand, you invented that trick. Am I correct?
It's a variation of it's a combination of two other tricks.
So I guess what I've been kind of curious is how does a trick get invented? Because I have no idea how you invent a trick. I guess it's somehow you're bringing things together, but I don't know what that process is like.
It's a good question. And it's funny because you mentioned earlier about the similarities between magic and comedy. And, I think that's actually where they separate. And I'm going to pick a different art form to help communicate what magic is like. And I think the best way to think about it would be cooking.
Ooh.
And it's funny because in cooking, there are actually only certain number of dishes. Like there's only so many ways you can cook a chicken. There are only so many ways you can cook a chicken. There are only so many ways someone can pick a card and you can find it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we've probably uncovered all of those ways. And in both scenarios, same thing. There's only so many ways to make a chicken soup. We've probably uncovered all those ways. That being said, every chef, if he's a good chef, he can have his unique chicken soup, which has his unique recipes and is recognizable to him. But most of the time now, when someone's doing something really new, it's a fusion. I'm taking this established thing and this established thing, or there's no new chicken soup. No one didn't just invent meat soup. And everyone's like, oh, wow, how did we not think of this before? The basics are established. And what's wonderful is they're amazing, wonderful creators who created them. And in a lot of magic, we can basically trace all the way back to the people who created the magic. And with each of those tricks, we can do a pretty darn good job of watching a new variation and a new variation, a new variation, a new variation, a new variation. And with those variations come combinations with other tricks and come, uniqueness. And I am just right now talking about the mechanics.
Ooh.
I'm not at all talking about the words, right? I'm just talking about the actual way that the trick works. Then, of course, what you're saying and what you could be doing is completely different. And how that develops is completely different. And that is depending on how you develop, what your interests are, what you want to talk about on stage. If you want to talk at all, maybe you want music, that's up to you. So there's different things to think about. But I guess the simplest way to think about it is like cooking, which is you probably know a version of a salad or a soup that someone taught you, your mother, your sister, a cousin, someone, or you learned it from a book or a video, a salad or a way to make eggs. And there are unlimited ways to make eggs, but there's only a few ways to make eggs, there's only a few ways before you're getting into some really peculiar combinations.
It also seems to depend on the style. I mean, when I think of magic, it's not really like one magician knows all the types of tricks. Usually they specialize as well, which is surprising.
100%. I mean, one can't be a sleight of hand technician, but also a stage virtuoso at the same time. Those are two completely different sets of skills.
When I was seeing a Penn and Teller show, they talk about this guy. Well, every magician on there seems like, I've been working on this trick for 4 years. To me, that feels incredible. What? A trick takes years to develop?
Absolutely. So let me help put some context into what that means, that I've been working on a trick for 4 years.
Yeah.
So right now, sitting here on this call, I could come up with a trick. Okay. It could take 39 seconds. Okay. Now, for the trick to be good, for there to be laughs and jokes and responses, for it to be sharp, for it to be flawless, it takes 4 years. When you go and watch a Netflix special of a stand-up comedian, have you watched any?
Oh, I'm a huge comedy fan.
Name one that you've watched.
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr, wonderful. Do you know how Bill Burr got those jokes so funny?
Yeah, lots of trials.
Uh-huh. Do you know how long he's been doing that set?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Well, let me share with you something, okay? I'm going to share with you. And forgive that this guy, everyone hates him right now and he's horrible, which he does some horrible stuff. Louis C.K., okay? Let me just bear with. Louis C.K. was an innovator of comedy because what he said is every year he's going to scrap his entire act and start again.
Yeah, George Carlin style. Yeah.
Right. That is like innovation. And do you know why he could do that? Because he did 280 shows a year. Right? I'm making up the number, but when he's in New York, he does 5 shows a night, 7 shows a night. So it's completely reasonable because it's a 10-minute spot at a comedy club, right?
Yeah,
then he goes to another comedy club and another comedy club. So when you're saying why does it take 4 years to develop, it's because it needs to be put in front of human beings and we need to actually iron out what actually works. So let's say let's say you're Bill Burr. Okay, Bill Burr cycles it takes him 2 years to get new material.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. That's reasonable. So for a magician that says they've been working on a trick for 4 years for it to look good enough to show to Penn and Teller and what that means is not that they've been in their workshop screwing a screw into the back of a deck of cards for 4 years trying to get the screw to fit. That's not what that means. What it means is that they have been working and tweaking 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1% until they have an actual act and a piece and a thing that's wonderful and unique to them and incredible and audience tested. And they know it's going to get a laugh here and here and here, just like Bill Burr does when he steps on his new Netflix special. He knows when people are going to laugh in the jokes. That's where they laughed on the last 319 shows they did. So that's what we're doing. That's what it means by it taking 4 years. Some people have twice as much workshop time as they have audience time because their magic demands it. Some people are mostly audience time. Okay, depends on who you are, but that's why it takes a long time.
What's your personal style when you're trying to refine a trick? Or do you not do that sort of thing? Are you building up the audience? Are you constantly trying to add in more complexity and make the trick longer? I understand how a comedian riffs, but I don't really understand how a magician riffs. I don't know how that works.
So I think that one interesting thing to be able to absorb from magic, and you've now seen quite a bit of magic, is, and we're actually using magic right now and comparing it to lots of different industries to try to get, we're saying, okay, it's like cooking in this way. It's like comedy in this way, right?
Yeah.
To really try to get a vibe and an understanding for exactly what magic is. So when you're saying like, how do I develop magic and how does it get better? Let me think of an industry or another style that might help make that make sense. And I think that one way to think about it would be a television show.
Ooh.
Okay, so let's say, and we're going to compare different television shows. So when you watch Law and Order, have you ever seen Law and Order?
A little bit.
Okay, all the shows have the exact same process. It starts, there's an interesting scene, it cuts to boom, do, 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 do. Great. Then they're like looking at the people, then they go investigate, they do the whole thing, and then at the end they catch them or they don't catch them, and that's the whole story, right? But also you've seen an episode of Friends, and those have their own rhythm to it. And you've also seen an episode of a cooking show or whatever, a show.
There is
all
a format.
These shows, there's a formula and there's a structure. So what happens is a magic trick, like, I take the 4 aces and I put one in this pile. And then I put one over here, one over here, one over here. So I put 4 in different places, okay? And then I put 3 cards on each ace. You're following me so far? Now I take the first ace and I put it inside of its 3 cards and I wave and it vanishes. And I take the second ace and I put it inside of its 3 cards and I wave and it vanishes. Now I take the third ace, I put it inside of its 3 cards, I wave and it vanishes. The audience now should figure out the same time that I'm showing them that the 3 cards that are on top of the 4th ace are now magically those 3 aces. Okay. Now, I don't know if I was able to say this clearly. I'm trying to not do it with my hands because the podcast. But what I'm trying to express is there's actually a poeticism. There is a plot to magic tricks. You follow with me? I'll give you an example.
Storyline.
You pick a card and you shuffle it inside the deck. What's next? Tell me.
I presume the card's going to reappear at some point.
Yeah, I got to find it. That's what's going to happen. What about this? I take a card, you sign it, and I rip it slowly into 4 pieces. What's the next thing I have to do?
You have to make it come back together.
Of course. Yeah. So there are simple plots that exist inside of the world of magic. And yes, we can allow them to get more complicated. Okay, I can rip up the 4 pieces, and then I take a blue card and I rip them up. And now when I put them back together, one corner is blue. And you know, wow, that's a unique, different thing. Okay, I can, but you can only, if you want your trick to be beautiful, if you want your trick to really have beauty, then you can't stray so far away from a plot. Right? Thinking about movie plots, maybe as an example, like there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a structure to a movie. So in some ways, yes, you can add certain tags and riffs in comedy where a trick maybe has a second or third interesting punch, or maybe a third phase or a third step or something. But for the most part, what you're going to be trying to do is, like a director, you're trying to refine this plot and tell your unique story and have a unique voice through this plot and this structure. And while your trick will look unique to everyone else's, and your magic and the words that you say should be unique and should be special, in the same way that you can pair up you can pair up 5 cop movies and see the real huge similarities between the structure of the movies. Even though one is Men in Black and it takes place in the future, and one of them is cops in the 80s, and one of them, they're all basically the same structure for a movie. So I know that was probably a little bit long, but hopefully that gives you a little bit clarity for when someone's working on their magic. Most of it is going to be like a director is sharpening the clarity and sharpening that plot and that structure and their unique voice through that.
Yeah, well, it seems like some of the best magicians are doing what they call in comedy the callback, where they bring something back in later on several times throughout the trick.
Sometimes. There are some tricks that have multiple phases. There's some tricks that are stationed to have multiple phases throughout a show, right? You start and then it shows up again middle, it shows up again later. You know, sometimes you've seen our shows, Ben and I take a trick and we make it into a trick that takes place over the course of a show so that it makes sense because we're the hosts. So we keep coming back and we keep doing it. So I wouldn't say the quality of a magician is reflected on the number of callbacks he's doing, or I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say like the great magicians are doing multiple. That I wouldn't say that it's like that. It's one way to do magic. It's one style. Maybe some people are using it beautifully, theatrically in wonderful ways. Some people either aren't using it, or maybe doing other things, and all of that can be wonderful as well.
Well, I remember there's one trick that Ben Train was doing where he takes the audience cell phone and he appears to smash it, or something gets damaged. And he does this several times. He keeps referring to the phone. I don't think he smashes it the first time he takes it. I think he comes back later on and then smashes it. And at the end of the show, he brings it back, but you don't realize that the phone is intact until the end of the show. You just presume it's been gone, and the audience member is just distraught. I remember that, and that was very vivid because I actually thought he broke it, even though I knew it's a magic show. I knew he's a magician, but because it hadn't been revealed right at that moment that it was okay, and you just never addressed it.
Yeah, well, that's the theater of it, right? You know, for that person, it's building tension. People in the audience are like, did he forget? Like, did he smash the show? And and people are thinking that to themselves, and that's part of the tension, and that's what makes the reveal so exciting, and that's what makes, and you know, the truth is, like, if you zoom out really far out during every magic show, then everything is a lie. Like, you know what's not true, right? Like, he obviously didn't smash the phone. Like, all of that. But the point of the magician, the goal of the magician, is to draw you into the story and the tale, which is that you know that none of this is true. You know nothing I'm saying is true, right? But the fun of it is when you're able to blur those lines a little bit. And so what you're saying means that it works, right? It means that Ben's acting, you know, and a little bit of whatever the in the moment stuff made it feel just like he smashed a phone. And then that made the ending all the more important for you.
Oh, for sure. No,
all the more memorable too.
I don't really even understand why. Like we do love being deceived because we're obsessed with magic, but I don't know why we like being deceived so much.
Well, let me explain, do you have any questions about it, or do you want me to share
No, please.
on it? Sure. So, one interesting part about deception is that usually in our lives when we get deceived, or when we have that magic moment of something that we thought was true is not true, it's a negative aspect. It means somebody sold us something that wasn't legit. It means we were maybe, it's kind of like a mini death, right? Somebody in your family maybe dies. You didn't take advantage of it enough. You didn't, this opportunity of us being robbed, us not being able to actually see the truth. We feel like we spent a lot of money on something, a lot of time on something that wasn't worth it. Somebody cheats on us, and how did we not see this? All forms, or
negative,
many forms of deception in the real world are very negative. So I think what's cool about magic is, especially in a theater space, is it's an opportunity for you to be deceived and for you to feel uncomfortable in a safe way. It's like a roller coaster, right? It's your opportunity to feel these discomforts and to feel these weird things, these realities being broken, the things you thought you understood potentially not being true, or the world's bending, or different things like that, in an environment which does not matter. When you watch a magician cut a woman in half on stage and put her back together, no matter how fooled you are, the fact that we're on stage and it's a magic show protects you from running to the nearest hospital and saying, you guys should learn about what this guy can do. It protects you. And that's what magic, and that's what the theatrical version of magic is all about, right? And that's why we like being deceived. And that's why, if you talk to magicians, if you ever want to have a fun time, because I know you spend time with magicians, ask a magician about psychics.
Ooh.
And there is no group of people on the planet that will speak more illy of psychics than magicians. Because it's obviously bullshit. It's the same bullshit that we do, except they're actually deceiving people, and they're like, wow, great $10 reading. Now give me $10,000 and I'll tell you how to talk to your dead grandmother, right? And the magicians are like, holy crap, like you can't, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. So literally, if you want to see magicians go wild, just ask them what they think about, a local psychic. And it's because of that fine line of where magic lies in the world of deception, which is that people want to be deceived in a safe way.
Yeah, it seems like magicians are ironically the one people who don't believe in superstition. Ghosts and
because we fake all that stuff, right?
It doesn't seem like they seem to be the one people who don't believe in magic are the people performing the magic a lot of the time. I don't know. I don't think that's consciously what they think going in, though. I think that's always a result later.
Of course. And that's there's a lot of funny, I always joke about there's a lot of tricks to the world of magic. Like one of them is when you get into the world of magic, what you think is happening, and then when you get out, what's actually happening. And I always joke that nerdy indoorsy type magicians nerdy indoorsy type kids who like to spend 8 hours in their room fiddling with playing cards get into magic, and then all of a sudden you find out you have to stand on stages in front of hundreds of people, and you're like, that's the opposite archetype of person that wanted to do that thing. So sometimes, that's pretty funny as well, is exactly what you're saying, which is, I got into magic because I was enthralled by the mystery of it all. And now on the producing end of it, I don't get any, or I get much less than anybody who is watching magic as a layperson.
So do you think the prestige is, well, not prestige, like the intrigue that you come into magic stays with you later? It sounds like it's completely different than what you get in and get out of it.
It's different, and it grows and it changes. So I actually spoke about this in a trick. It's possible you would have seen it because I did it a lot at Newest Trick. But it's unfortunate that it's like a drug addict, where we got into magic to chase this idea of being fooled. And the more we learn, the less we're fooled, and the less we have these opportunities. So, in one sense, that's really crap. But there's two other silver linings. The first is, when we are fooled, it's awesome because we know everything about how things work. And when something still fools us, it means there's something really clever. And we enjoy magic because we also like learning that stuff in the engineering sense. So even that is satisfying as well in a new, wonderful way. That's one benefit. But the other benefit is that the I've been trained my whole life in seeing tricks to know how to give the gift of a trick, to get somebody to feel that thing that excited me, to move me to be here, and so on, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I actually get to share this thing, which is quite fulfilling and quite wonderful to do. So yes, in one sense, I got into magic to be fooled more and get that more, and it's the opposite of what I get. But in another sense, my life is full of magic. I get to share it. I get to learn it. I still get fooled, albeit rarely, but I still get fooled. And when I do, it's a wonderful, amazing experience. And I love it. And I savor that moment for as long as I possibly can.
Well, does that mean that it's not enjoyable to watch tricks that you know how is already done then?
No, I am just enjoying something completely different than you are on a completely different level.
Ooh,
so when a gymnast watches the Olympics and when you watch the gymnastics Olympics, you two are looking at things that are not even in the same conversation.
Ooh.
Like you're like, wow, look at the color of their outfit. That's really fun. And the gymnast is like, I saw that extra second of tuck in your third twist in the air before you landed. When they land like this, the gymnast watching says exactly what their score is. She knows. She's seen this 150,000 times. She's done it. She goes, yeah, she didn't hit a 10 with that. She hit a 9.113, and then maybe she's off by a decimal point. Whereas we watch it and they land and we go, well, that was awesome. And the judges go like 6 and we're like, what? How was it a 6? She was so good.
Yeah,
so we have no idea. So I am certainly not getting the same thing out of watching a magic trick than you are. I could argue that what I'm getting is richer, but I wouldn't. I would say that what we're just getting are two completely different things from engaging and watching magic.
Actually, you brought up an interesting point about competitions. There are lots of magic international competitions, and I don't understand how anyone can rank a trick higher than another trick. How does that work?
Same way people can rank poetry and movies, right? I certainly am not big in magic competitions for the reason why you're talking about. What a magic competition does is, if it is a good competition, then they've pre-explained what the rubric is.
Ooh.
Which means it's your job to make magic that does exactly what the competition is designed to do. So in some senses, that's a great thing. And competitions allow magicians to create and with deadlines and with restrictions and all these wonderful things. And also competitions allow us to see which magicians can work the hardest and the best and do incredible things. That being said, magic is so big and fluid.
Yeah.
In all the ways that it could be used, is used in every environment, in every way, that I have used more. I've done more things that wouldn't fit in competition brackets than I would that do fit in competition brackets. And maybe that's to my, maybe I do. I don't know. But for me, I don't like going and reading competition requirements. For me, the most important person in the entire world for how my magic looks and feels is me. And then the second person is the audience. And that's the ranking. And like a panel of magicians somewhere with a rubric is certainly not for me. If you hear magicians, every magician doesn't unanimously agree that the magicians who won on America's Got Talent are the best magicians in the world. That's certainly not the case. So competitions are not ways to rank the quality of magic. That's just not true. They're something else. They're wonderful in their own right. In the same way that the winner of the NHL does not necessarily contain the 24 best players that year. Like it just doesn't work like that. It just means like it's like like a music competition. Great. Does Justin Bieber win any music competitions? I have no idea. Is he a great musician? I have no idea. The person that did win music competitions, are they being paid? I have no idea. Do people like their stuff? I have no idea, right? So like, to me, I'm more interested in going down the avenues of what the audiences say and want and feel, rather than the avenues of what a panel of judges, no matter how wonderful they are. And I'll also add a little caveat, which is I'm very fortunate that I grew up in Toronto learning magic here, and I've had a lot of peers. So somebody who doesn't have that, and maybe they have once a year an opportunity to share their magic at the big magic competition, it is an opportunity to get feedback on an act in a way that I am not talking about. So certainly those people as well have great benefit, but I'm very fortunate that I get to share my magic with people, and I get to know very quickly if things are working based on people that are around me. So I don't really have to worry about those things.
It's interesting you bring up the point that the judge is not necessarily the goal. Like, I'm a huge fan of that TV show Penn and Teller, but I never really thought that maybe the trick doesn't matter whether it fools the judge or not. That's a good point.
Bingo. If you listen to the interviews, with Penn and Teller about the show, they make it incredibly clear that the whole entire point of the show is to give magicians an awesome, fun platform to perform and share their magic. The whether or not it fools them is the television bit that makes it fun and interesting for live television and exciting, but they don't care. It's not relevant. They want awesome TV level magic. The producers for the show, when they're hunting for people to be on it, they want awesome TV quality magic. They're not looking for, maybe this will fool them. They wanted tricks that would fool them exclusively. They would just bring in weird magicians who do weird card tricks. That's all they would do, because there's just unlimited weird variations of card. So they're looking for beautiful TV magic. Both Penn Teller and the producers are. The fool us is a fun, sexy gimmick. Exactly.
But it seems like you do want to have some form of gimmick in just a general performance as well, whether it's comedy, whether it's magic. The gimmick seems to be really important just to attract the audience.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a gimmick. The thing I would say is to touch on what you said earlier, which is it's the person. It's what the person's doing. So, someone could be a silent performer with no weird gimmicks that's incredibly interesting. Someone could also be a speaking performer with jokes and stuff, and that's interesting. Someone could wear a dumb hat, and he could be the dumb-hatted guy. You can do it any way you want. It's however that person chooses to display, and share their art, the art of it all.
All right. Looks like we're almost out, but I want to ask one more key question. I guess two more. The first one is, for those who are interested in getting started in magic, do you have, I think this is the usual question, do you have any advice for how people get started?
Tough. It's tough, actually. And the reason that it's tough is because maybe, can we take 30 seconds to talk about this?
Yeah, take as long as you like.
Okay. For a very long time, the best resource in magic was books, because magicians publish their work in books. Then with the advent of, the growth of videos, it became videos. But with the accessibility of videos, there's a lot of people teaching that shouldn't necessarily be teaching. And those are often the most accessible videos. So, most people are going to go learn on YouTube no matter what I say.
Yeah.
Right? So most people are going to go, right. So most people are going to go get started on YouTube no matter what I say. I can tell you, you can go to this website or that website. You're not really going to. So here's what I recommend for you. The best way into magic is through other magicians.
Oh.
Because they are the ones who are going to help you get to where it is that you want to go and shave years off of you watching crap.
Oh, wow.
No matter where you buy magic, whether you're buying books, whether you're buying videos, whether you're buying whatever, there's crap and there's good stuff. Okay? So the short answer is, no matter what I say, you're going to start on YouTube. But after you've been on YouTube for a little bit and you've enjoyed that process, contact any magician you know. If you're listening to this, you're 1 degree of separation from me. You can send me an email, jonah@torontomagiccompany.com. Say, hey, you told me on the podcast that I should learn some magic, and then, I should contact you, and this is what I'm doing right now. Done. I will literally get on like a 10-minute phone call with you, ask you about what you want to learn, and recommend the best resources for you. But just like what you said, there are close-up magicians. There are stage magicians. You can learn magic for informal settings. You can learn card tricks. There's so many things that you can do with magic that if I were to say to you, the best place to learn magic is X, I would be sending 70 or 80% of the people astray. So I would say go down the first rabbit hole or the second rabbit hole that you'd like. And if you still find yourself Googling and YouTubing magic, you can come and find me or go and call the nearest magician that you know. That's my best advice.
That's pretty damn good advice right there.
Doing what I can. I want people to be in magic, but they have to fall in love with it. They have to want to do it.
Yeah. Okay, last question is do you have anything you want to promote? Anything you want your viewers to know about?
I do a ton of stuff. I run the Discourse in Magic podcast. We interview magicians. That's mostly for magicians. But if you want to hear me babble and you want to hear me share my marketing advice and sales advice, that's the place where I do that. And then the Toronto Magic Company, we're always putting on live things for the public. And like I touched on earlier, since things went virtual, then the public is not just Toronto, it's the world. So as long as you're not on like a really different time zone, you can probably enjoy a lot of our virtual events, and many of them are recorded and other fun things like that. So I would say
they're really good, by the way. They're really good. If anyone gets a chance.
Oh, well, thank you. Were you at the Halloween show?
No, I didn't see Halloween. I should. You can still look at the video, right?
It is not available to watch the Halloween show video. That was a one-time viewing, but it was a ton of fun, and we're going to do more other special fun events like that. So yeah, we're going to have live events, free, paid, a lot of fun stuff online. We just want to welcome people to the world of magic, whether it's watching magic or learning your first few tricks. We're trying to make it really easy for people. So go to TorontoMagicCompany.com, and like I said, if you can't find what you're looking for there, or if you need something else, send me a message, Jonah@TorontoMagicCompany.com, and I'm happy to help you out with whatever I can in the world of magic. And if you have something outside of the world of magic, like favorite tacos or burgers in Toronto, we can talk about that too. It's up to you.
There we go, everyone. That's Jonah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.